it's Thursday, everyone. I'm Andrew Dowd. Time for a Happening in the Hamptons podcast, our weekly breakdown of the Hamptons market, new listings, and events on the East End. We are sponsored by New York Title Abstract, the Hamptons' leading title insurance firm. Visit NewYorkTitle.com. We have Steve Glick, Dave Rotiner, and today a return guest, Mr. John Healey. How are you? Thanks for coming in. It's like a kind of a miserable, sort of snowy, very
sloshy
February kind of day.
It's a stay-in-bed day.
It's a stay-in-bed day, but he got out of bed to come into the office and hang out with us. But it's not bad. I mean, look, you're busy, right? And we were just talking about this before we got started.
Yeah.
That, like, once weather isn't what it is, you're seeing the spring as maybe like a turnaround or an improvement even from where we're at. Things ramping up a little bit.
I think that obviously with factors, and we can talk about that in a minute, of like what happened in the devastation in California. We have seen people ringing here, reaching out here, either to relocate for the summer or relocate for a year, whether it's rent or sale. Some people, they're reconfiguring their lifestyle and their life because it's so much of it was changed for them in California. But we are seeing a little bump of that we wouldn't normally see. Especially rentals. This is our rental season time. It's really going to ramp up probably. Historically, President's Day weekend was like rental weekend. That was when everyone came out and started thinking about summer and a rental. That kind of waned a little bit over the last few years because of COVID and things like that. But I think we're getting back into that seasonality for everything in real estate, whether it's sales or rentals. So I anticipate a pretty busy spring. For sales and rentals both, and I know that when we hear the numbers later, the inventory is increasing, and we have been waiting for that. Having more options gets people excited in terms of looking for real estate.
So one of the things we were just talking about, I mean, this isn't something we really typically brought up on the podcast, but when you're looking to buy, right, there's one thing you have to consider. There's a lot you have to consider, but one of the most important things is insurance. Which is, you were saying, getting a little bit more difficult to come by. Some companies are just not as eager to insure by the water, which we, of course, are surrounded
by the water or not. I mean, obviously out here we're on a peninsula basically, but if you're inland, you shouldn't be qualified as near water too much. But they even look at mileage. They look at, you're a quarter mile from the water. So that gives us a little bit of risk, not risk that I would understand, because that would be a pretty devastating, tidal event or hurricane that gets a quarter mile in. But that being said, this is the time of year that most people's policies re-up, and people have been dropped. My insurance company states that basically because of California's issues and wildfires and loss, as well as Florida's from the hurricanes, that's affecting obviously nationwide homeowners policies. But it's not just homeowners too. It's auto and so on.
Right.
I don't think it affects liability, but I did learn, of course, that mine increased, and it made me think and talk to some other people. And people have been dropped by smaller firms or for whatever reason, even a larger firm. And it seems like they just don't have the interest in wanting to insure people out here.
It's something, it's crazy. Like when you buy a house, you don't think, let me check
just
to
kind of
see
assumed,
if I can get homeowners insurance and A, or B, what that price would be. You have, of course, your closing costs, what's the operational expenses to own the property, to maintain the property. And then, of course, homeowners insurance is always a line item, but you just say, of course we'll get homeowners insurance. But that could change. I mean, they could be like, there's only a limited amount of companies that will provide that policy and what that policy cost is. And it may be a lot. It may not be a lot. It's something to really consider. And I like what John's saying is like, look at your policy that you currently have, check the rates and shop around. There's other options out there and you're not locked into one, even though you've been with one for so many years. Just look around and see. And that's like a good, message out there to all the homeowners is just check your policy because it's a new year, it's a new world, and just see where you're at.
Well, to add to that, if you are purchasing real estate with a mortgage with a bank, you're required to have insurance. The bank is going to require, in case there's a loss, you're required to have it. And so having people having people, it's more, being that it's more difficult to get insurance, that's something to really prepare when you're coming out here to look to purchase. You want to have all your ducks in a row. It's one thing to do your due diligence on where you want to be and all the detail that you can get from the internet in terms of doing your homework as a purchaser. But it's important then also maybe to call your carrier or your representative and say, look, I'm thinking of buying a property in the Hamptons. I am going to get a mortgage. What's the insurance going to be looking like? And if you end up buying something that's close to the water, you might find out it's difficult. And then you don't want to go into a contract and find out, wow, we can't get the right insurance, or it's going to cost us more than we expected.
Right.
Now we can't afford the house. So really important, I think, is the way the insurance business is right now is to make sure ahead of time that you have those
Smart advice.
those numbers prepared, and you know that you're going to get it.
It's the
Obviously,
first we had someone talk about insurance.
Yeah,
On our
well,
podcast,
it's like
you know?
you have to you have to have it, like you're saying. So it's an important thing, and it can be a big number,
right?
Depending on where you buy, how big the house is, all that kind of stuff, and that can, like you were saying, impact what your monthly payments are.
I got an example yesterday from my carrier representative, and he said that, there's a lot of people in Florida right now that are going uninsured because it's just so expensive. And I said,
is that legal? Is that legal to do?
Well, if you own it cash, if you own it outright, you don't have to have insurance. That's
What
up to
happened?
you.
What
Very
about if you have a
dangerous, though.
mortgage and then your insurance goes up to the point where you can't afford it?
Well,
Then you're
if you
screwed.
can't afford the property because the insurance is part of the property, then you may have to sell your property.
Wow.
Think about it. I mean, if you can't afford it, the bank is going to want that insurance all the time. And even normally they want an overlap if you're going to switch companies. But if you get dropped, you got to notify your bank right away and say, look, I got dropped. I'm looking for more, because you're not covered at that moment. But what I was hearing yesterday was that a fourth floor apartment in Miami, fourth floor now, that's, you're up there.
Yeah,
$40,000 a year
for an
for
apartment.
a 2-bedroom apartment in Miami on the fourth floor. And there's really no argument about it. And it's not likely that the tide is ever, in a hurricane or anything, going to get to that fourth floor apartment more
Right.
than likely. But that's what they're pushing, is basically saying this is a risky place.
It's not a risky place. It's like guaranteed. It's like
Well,
it's
it
guaranteed you're gonna get hit with a
It
hurricane.
is, but
there.
if you're on the 4th floor, the 10th floor, the 8th floor, well, there's no guarantee that you're going to get damaged.
No, of course, yeah.
So that to me is just kind of taking advantage. And so this is what led the discussion of people are saying, I'm going to go uninsured. They obviously own it outright. And they're taking a risk. Now, the risk on a 4th floor to me, if it's a big building, is very minimal because your apartment, the only thing that's really going to happen possibly is flooding in your own apartment from the apartment above or something like that. But if you're getting destroyed, the building's getting destroyed,
Right.
probably. So
Right.
Your risk is that we're all losing or we're all okay. So that's understandable in a building, but it is something for buyers to look at. And all of you out there that own homes and just love listening to this podcast because it is that good.
Couldn't
that
agree more.
you should just check your policies, because this is the year that I think you're going to see advances in cost, and maybe even reduction in what they're going to replace your dwelling with in terms of
That's good
pricing.
advice.
So it's
And that can just be an email to your salesperson. Like
absolutely,
I
and
could just
then
email that guy
and then
say,
you can
"What's my
have them
deal?"
resend you last year's policy, this year's policy. You can look at
Yeah.
the two, because they're sending them out now. The turnover is normally in the first quarter of the year that I find. I'm not an insurance salesman, but that's what I find, at least with my policy. It's always goes around like that loop. But
And do you shop around? Would you shop?
at that point, why wouldn't you? I mean, if it's going to be a big jump, you can shop.
It's always
around.
good.
Yeah.
Why
Why
not?
not? I
say
think
do it.
the adage is every
Can't
3
hurt.
years you should check it, and maybe you check
Well, I
some other people.
remember when I was buying my house, that was the issue. Like the insurance was like $600 more a year, and then it
Shop
needed
around,
to be,
man.
and then went to like Mineola or something. I had my insurance is like.
I do think even shopping around out here,
Yeah.
the big carriers, you want a carrier that's not going to disappear too when you have a problem.
Right.
So you want a reputable carrier.
Exactly.
And
This
I
phone
think
line has
they're
been
all in the
disconnected.
same boat basically.
Yeah.
And you go to a no-namer, and you might get a policy, might be cheaper, but then when you have a problem, they might say, we've moved. We're not here anymore.
Who? What?
Yeah. It's weird. We don't have any records of you. All right, so let's talk. So going back to the market and your anticipations for spring, let's just get a look at the numbers this week because we have more inventory.
Yes, we have
Which is
some
good.
more inventory, so this is a positive this week. But over the past week, there were 23 listings that went into contract, so we're constantly seeing in the 20s every week. Last year, there were 28 at the same time, so it's a small decrease of 18%. 2 years ago, there were 20 listings exactly, so it's an increase there of 15%. The 23 transactions this week, there was 4 between 5 and 10, 6 between 3 and 5, 5 between 2 and 3, 5 between 1 and 2, and 3 under $1 million. Dollar volume this past week was $74 million. Last year was $94 million. That's a decrease of 21%. 2 years ago, the dollar volume was $60 million, increase there of 23%. New listings. This is what we've been talking about earlier. 34 new listings came onto the market. So that increases the inventory by 11 listings. And the breakdown of those 34 new listings, there was 5 between 5 and 10, 4 between 3 and 5, 6 between 2 and 3, 14 between 1 and 2, 5 under $1 million. Inventory stands at 1,729 total listings, 1,316 active, and 413 in contract. So it's good to see there's still activity happening with 20 plus listings going into contract this past week. And then it's great to see this new inventory coming on the market in all different price categories.
What do you think that's? Why do you think that is? Do you think people are just like getting ready to, like they know the selling season's coming up, things are going to be brightening up, they're like, let's get our house on the market, or it's just?
You know, I would say that in some respects, as much as the economy is doing well, if you follow it, you know, in general, it's doing very well. But the one thing that I notice in reviewing our economic situation at this time is the increase in credit card debt. If you read about finances, the increase of credit card debt in the last couple of years has been huge.
Really?
And for some, that may mean, hey, you know, maybe we sell our house. You know, it depends on the size of the house and the situation. Yeah. If you own 2 homes out here, or you own a home out here, but you know you don't spend that much time, and unless you rent it and go through the process of which, you know, you got to get a permit and so on and so forth, and that can be difficult for some houses depending on the condition. Mm-hmm. I do think that you know, there's certain parts of the market where they're struggling a little bit just with debt. And so maybe that clears debt. Maybe they can buy a smaller house out here and clear some debt by selling their other. So I don't, you know, usually when inventory increases quickly, there is a factor for it. It's not a seasonal thing and so on. I mean, it is the season now, right? Because obviously you can move in for the summer. If you list your house now, sell it in the next few months, you know, time for someone to paint or do a little bit, move furniture in, so on. And they can then enjoy it for the summer or even rent it if that's what they choose out here because it's such a good investment. But I do think that you can't avoid that. Mm-hmm. And looking at that data, too, that there is a lot more debt. And they talk about it often now, daily on the financial applications and news and stuff. But I think in general, it is our season. We're coming back to more seasonality from COVID, which our season was, you know, 12 months a year.
Yeah.
And so we're slowly getting back to where we were in, you know, mid 2000s, where it was like, you know, you knew you could go on vacation in January, February. Mm. As an agent, I usually did because it wasn't bustling. It was slow. Yeah. And it helps because, you know, listen, our weather today, it's snow, rain, cold, you know.
It's good to get a little.
It's not
great.
Yeah.
So I do think a lot of it's seasonality. I'm anxious and happy to have more inventory because it gives the clientele options.
More to look at.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there's people that say, oh, I've already seen that. I've seen that online a lot. You know, we're waiting for something else. So now to have things sort of blossom a little bit, people will be excited to come out and look at, you know, a choice of 8 to 10 homes rather than a choice of 3 to 5 something. So that's a really good positive for the market.
That's good.
Great.
David.
Yes.
What's happening?
Well, there's some events happening this weekend, and all of these events can be found on Hamptons.com, which is the leading lifestyle website in the Hamptons. For all things Hamptons, visit Hamptons.com.
That was well done.
Thank you.
All right.
So Harbor Frost returns this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
February 7th, February 8th. So you get some fireworks.
There you go.
You know, so you bring the kids out there in Sag Harbor. Get ready to kick off Harbor Frost in style with a weekend full of exciting events from sparkling ice sculptures to breathtaking fireworks. The festivities begin Friday, February 7th with the Tastes of Sag Harbor at the Sag Harbor Cinema, featuring delicious bites from 15 local restaurants. And then on Saturday, the village comes alive with a wide variety of activities for all ages, from the story walk, trail hike, and ice carving demonstrations to live music, glitter tattoos, and sushi making classes.
That's truly something for everybody.
Something to do. Something to do. It is cool to see the fireworks in February because you're out there. And you're out. You know, it's not like you're sitting down in a beach chair. You're standing with freezing cold hat on, and you're just
the opposite of what you think.
All huddled around, and you're looking up, and the fireworks go off. I've done it pretty much every year. I don't know for how long, but the kids love it. It's a great thing to do.
You go to eat.
And I go to eat.
Well, yeah. I mean,
go to Sen, get some sushi. And then we got Super Bowl this weekend.
Yes, we do. Go Birds.
How about the Chiefs?
I will be watching.
Let's go Chiefs.
I don't know about the Chiefs. I like the interview with. Did you see the online where the guy walks up to Kelsey and he's like Travis, who has helped? Which ref has helped you the most this year? And he's just like, next question.
Oh man,
I'm looking for greatness. I'm looking for 3 in a row. Pat
He's
Mahomes.
probably gonna win.
I like
great
the
to
idea
see
of
it,
getting a three-peat dynasty again.
That's awesome. It's awesome to watch. It's
Agree
awesome
to
to watch, see the history, and it'll be great. It'll be a great game either way.
Okay.
The last time they met was a great game, till it wasn't.
So we're betting on the Chiefs.
Questionable calls.
But you're
No, we're not. I'm an Eagles fan.
you're from Philadelphia,
It's a
that's
pick 'em.
right? Or
The
Pennsylvania.
spread's at it like a 1, so it's definitely a pick 'em.
Remember something.
Wow. All
When
right.
you are that good, you are going to bring more eyes on you, and the doubters are going to try and look for places to find your fault.
Mm-hmm.
They're turning to the refs every time. How many other games have we seen where no one
But
said
there's
anything
been
about
with the
poor
Chiefs.
calls,
Oh, come on.
and yet there were poor calls? It's just a fact of the game.
Yeah.
And as a ref, you're a mortal person where, you can make mistakes, and I get it. They try and really focus in on how that's just wrong. But I bet if you looked at a lot of games,
You look at every game.
you'd see a lot
you
of
could rip
things
apart
wrong
every
in
game.
other games too, and say, "Oh, we didn't notice that though," because hey, maybe it wasn't a major game, maybe it wasn't a major player or a major team or something. But obviously, when you're trying to build up to being the best in the world, you're going to get a lot of people trying to take you down.
I mean, if you're the Eagles, I just you take the refs out of it. Don't even put yourself in a position where you're
there you
tied
go.
at 35
Yeah.
and there's 2 minutes left to go, and there's that holding or pass
Yeah,
interference.
don't
call.
let it
It's
come
like,
down to
don't
one
let it
play.
Come down to that.
Yeah, you never you never want it to come down to one play. You
The
want to
reality
play
is,
hard.
the
all
refs are
game.
never going to cost a game.
I would be shocked if the Chiefs don't win. That's all I have to say. The
wouldn't
the
be
story
shocked.
is
I
just
think it's
too
still,
good.
You got two pretty decent good teams. I don't know if I'd be shocked.
I'd be
It's going to
shocked.
be a great game. I can't wait
It's
to
going to
watch
be a good
it.
game. So there you go. So that's Sunday.
Yeah. So the question is where do you go in the Hamptons for that? So on Sunday, the number one spot to go is Town Line Barbecue is that in Wainscott?
Yeah,
I
it's
think
in
it's
Wainscott
Wainscott.
on Town Line Road.
Yeah. So there you
Come
go.
on.
That's the number one spot.
I almost said Watermill for a second.
Is that really the number one spot?
Well, according to Dave Retiner.
Okay.
What do you think's the number
Because they
one
don't have
spot?
like
No,
a big
it's not
TV.
that big. It's not
I mean,
that
you need
big.
big TVs.
They
And
got
you know,
TVs
isn't
all
the-
around though.
Isn't the TV? I mean, I've been there. It's been a while, but I mean, I
clubhouse.
think it's not the most comfortable spot only because you're sitting at like family style tables.
What about the
Right.
clubhouse?
It's
East
a
Hampton
little
clubhouse.
awkward.
They have something going on. at the
Clubhouse would be great because you got couches and chairs and
Huge,
Okay, fine.
huge TV.
Yeah.
What about
come on.
John
The
Healey's
clubhouse
house?
is
You got a
good.
nice
House
place,
too,
you
yeah.
know?
The
We'll be
other one
watching
that's
there.
good is the public house. But here's why.
Yeah,
because
okay.
Public house is cool. I
the
like
public
that.
house, you have
That's-
$8 burgers, half price wings, and $6 draft
Yeah,
beers.
there you go. That's my
And
style.
$5 all canned and bottled beers.
I remember when $8
That's at
for
the
a
public
burger
house.
seemed like
Uber home.
crazy. Now it's a
Uber
bargain.
home. But so I wanted to bring this up at Town Line Barbecue because we've had this before. The bag of nuggets, the bag of nugs. You can get the bag
The
of nugs,
bag of nugs.
and then you
What is
just
it? Chicken nuggets?
you
No,
basically
no,
you
just-
eat.
what is it?
They're like crispy smoked
Oh,
pork
like, tips.
ribs
Yeah,
tossed
steak
Yeah,
tips.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
in their wing sauce.
Tough, man. That's tough.
You bite through it,
That's
and then
a tough night. That's
and
a
then you
tough
pa-
morning after you.
So
Yeah.
Dave, where are we going to find you for the Super Bowl? Because that way your audience here can come and
they
relish
can,
in
Get
yeah,
some autographs.
I
Yeah.
sign some autographs.
Where would you be?
I don't know. Where am I going? Town Line or Kids? No,
I
probably.
don't feel like I should be around people.
I don't know. 75 Main? Maybe I'll go to 75 Main. Where am I going?
Really?
75.
I haven't come up with it yet. Yeah, because they got the TV right at the bar.
Okay. All right.
You know, we're lacking good sports bars out here
Yeah.
in Hamptons. I could tell you that.
Business
That's probably
idea.
a good
Investors? Maybe
Yeah,
you?
like a
Nice
big,
sports.
sick,
Yeah.
sports
thing.
bar.
Put
I
a
would
TV in
say-
your new shed.
Yeah. The clubhouse seems like a good go-to spot.
Yeah, the
but I live in
clubhouse looks like
Southampton. I'm not
comfortable.
going to a public club.
Public house would be cool. If I were to go out around here, I think public house would be my
Yeah,
go-to.
it's
right
easy.
there. That's a good
All
one. Great.
Yep.
So the Super Bowl. What else you got? We
That's
got
it. That's what's going on. in the
Harborfrost
Hamptons.
and the
Harborfrost
Super Bowl.
That's it,
Yep.
man. That's the
That's it.
weekend.
That's your
what else
weekend.
you doing on Sunday? It's Super Bowl Sunday. It's a holiday. Super Bowl Monday. Should be everyone.
Are
should
we
have to
off
do.
on Monday?
No, but
No.
I think it's coming.
It should be a holiday.
I remember this is the quick story. So when I was, what was it, 7 years ago? The Eagles were in the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. That whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
I drove down
God,
to
was
Philly.
that 7 years
Yeah,
ago?
I drove because my daughter was just born. I drove down to Philly and watched it with my buddies, and then woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, drove back and into the office, and Steve's like, I thought you were going out today. Like, I can't believe you're here.
I have a memory of when they won. And
That was amazing.
I texted you. I was like, "Are you psyched?" And you wrote back. I remember it so well. All caps. You wrote, "I am so happy."
I was out on Broad Street. It was great.
You were like,
Yeah.
you just like.
Well, let's see. I mean, you could maybe it's going to happen this weekend.
Well,
It's great. I'm happy either way. So.
It'll be a good game. All right, cool. John, anything else before we let you get back to it? Are you going back to bed? What's going on?
Looking forward to better weather,
That's
and
it.
and once we get some spring in the air, I think it's going to be very busy. I think it's going to start getting crowded. I will say it's nice. The traffic is minimal right now.
It is.
That's nice.
It's nice, but it'll be good to get back into the swing of things for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right, we'll call that a podcast. Everybody have a great day. Have a great weekend. Go Eagles. We'll see you next week. I'm Andrew Dowd. That's what's happening in the Hamptons.
How about them Chiefs?